The sun bled over the far horizon, turning the desert into a sea of copper and fire. The land stretched endlessly, quiet as a grave, save for the whisper of the wind that carried old songs of loss. In that silence lived a man the world had almost forgotten. They called him the Silent Rancher. No one remembered his real name. Maybe he had buried it with his past. His ranch stood miles away from the nearest town, surrounded by fences he'd built alone. People said he didn't talk to anyone, didn't smile, didn't pray, and perhaps didn't even dream anymore. He had lost too much once, a family, a promise, and a piece of himself that no man could rebuild. Every morning he'd step out into that lonely land, feed the horses, mend the fences, and let the wind speak for him. For 6 long months no human voice had reached his ears, and maybe that silence had become his only friend. But on a late autumn evening, the earth itself seemed to change its breath. The air grew heavy with the scent of distant rain, and in the fading light a figure appeared along the ridge. She was tall, taller than most men, her presence carved from strength and sorrow. The fading sunlight painted her skin in shades of bronze and shadow, her dark hair braided with the dust of the land. She was known among her people as Nyara, the Giant Apache Sister. Stories of her had drifted across camps and saloons alike, whispered with awe and fear. She had fought to protect her people, lost her brother in battle, and vanished into the wilderness. Some said she had turned to stone. Others said the land itself had taken her in. But that evening she stood at the edge of the ranch, her eyes meeting the man's across the dying fields. For a long moment neither spoke. The wind moved between them like a ghost of memory. When she finally walked closer, her steps were slow, steady, and sure, like someone who carried the weight of a lifetime behind her. The rancher straightened, brushing the dust from his gloves, watching her approach without fear, but with quiet curiosity. "This land doesn't get many visitors," he said, his voice dry and unused, like a door creaking open after too long. Nyara's gaze didn't waver. Her tone was low, filled with something both broken and proud. "I have not felt love in 6 months," she said. The words struck him like a sudden gust of wind, unexpected, raw, honest. But it wasn't the kind of love men and women speak of in passing. It was something deeper, almost sacred. It was the loss of kindness, the ache of being unseen. Her voice carried 1,000 miles of loneliness, and the rancher understood it without needing to ask another question. For he too had forgotten what warmth felt like. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then harder, striking the dry earth like a long-awaited blessing. Nyara did not move. She stood there as if the sky itself was washing her clean. The rancher looked at her, saw the rain glisten against her face, and for the first time in half a year, he didn't turn away from another human being. "You can come inside," he said simply, his voice barely audible through the rain. Inside the old wooden barn, the air was heavy with the scent of hay and oil. Horses shifted quietly, sensing the strangeness of this meeting. Nyara sat near the lantern's glow, her broad shoulders glistening with raindrops, her eyes locked on the small flame dancing before her. The rancher poured her a tin cup of warm water, unsure why he cared, only knowing that it felt right. She spoke of her people, how the land once sang with their voices, how the rivers ran free before fences cut them off. She told him about her brother, the last warrior of their tribe, who had fallen defending a canyon that the world had already forgotten. Her words flowed like the rain outside, slow, heavy, and full of mourning. He listened without interruption, the firelight catching the small tremor in his hand as he poured more water into her cup. When she finished, silence filled the barn again. Then, for the first time in years, the rancher spoke not with his voice, but with truth. "This land breaks those who stay too long," he said quietly. "But maybe if 2 broken souls share it, it might just hold together." Nyara looked up, and for the briefest moment, the loneliness in her eyes softened. "You build fences," she said softly. "But not all fences are meant to keep things out. Some are built to keep your pain in." He gave a faint smile, small, uncertain but real, the kind of smile that reminded him what it meant to be alive. They sat there until the storm passed, 2 strangers, bound by the same silence that once buried them. By dawn, The sky had turned silver. Nayara stood at the barn's open doors, watching the sun crawl across the plains. "Your land is wide," she said, "but your heart is wider." The rancher stepped beside her, the morning light touching his worn face. "Maybe," he said, "it's just been waiting for someone to notice." Their eyes met once more, not with longing, but with understanding, the kind that grows not from desire, but from the simple truth that no one should face the world entirely alone. As she rode away that morning, the wind carried her laughter, soft, almost ghost-like, but filled with new life. The rancher watched her vanish beyond the ridges, the fences no longer feeling like prison walls. And when the wind whispered again through the grass, he finally whispered back. It wasn't her name he spoke, just a promise that he would not let silence rule him anymore.